2023 AUSA Civilian Showcase. Thanks for coming. As you all know, the Army is all about people, and Army civilians play a critical role in Army current and future readiness, and I think we'll get into that to some degree. Our theme for today's event is Innovating Today for the Future Ready Army of 2030. We plan to share how we are innovating for the future with a dynamic panel representing 3 of our major commands. One of AUSA's goals is to provide professional development to Army civilians, as well as to build and foster professional relationships, and I think we're doing that very well at this particular conference. General Brown has really, I think, breathed some new life into AUSA, and the energy at this conference is better than I've seen in many, many years at AUSA, and it's been awesome to see that, and he wants that to spill over in what AUSA does for Army civilians. Today's Civilian Showcase is really the last civilian event we'll have at this year's annual convention, but it's the culmination of several things that have gone on over the course of the week. Yesterday, AUSA hosted 11 career field discussions where the functional chiefs and the program managers for the Army's civilian career fields had the opportunity to sit in a room with careerists and talk about professional development and where those career fields are going in this very dynamic environment. And myself and a few others opened those events, and I thought they were hitting it out of the park with what the functional chiefs, what they were getting across to the careerists and the careerists' feedback on what they thought they needed in order to advance their careers. So that was great. We also hosted the AUSA, well, the Army's SES seminar, as we call it, this morning, kind of a breakfast meeting where we gathered most of the Army senior executives into a room, and we had some great discussions about talent management and what the professor called operational shift or drift, and that was pretty interesting stuff, and how you got to keep your eyes on the ball and what you're trying to achieve with the mission. So I did want to talk to you. So if you're here, you received a basic free membership with AUSA, which is a big deal and a big difference of years past. AUSA membership, as it grows, and it's grown exponentially over the past year or two, that helps AUSA have a stronger voice with Congress and with the department. So I would encourage you all to join AUSA and look into the Premier membership, where you get additional perks, which are really, I think, important as we try to meet AUSA's goal to better serve the Army and better serve Army civilians. We also hosted the Army Civilian Advisory Committee this week as well. We did that yesterday afternoon. Value the insight and support of those who sit on the committee, and I did want to recognize those members. So if y'all would stand. Ms. Diane Randon, I don't know if Diane has made it here yet, because I know she had several things to do. There you are. Thank you for being here. Randy Robinson. Randy? I know I saw Randy. Thank you. And we've got 2 advisors to the committee. Don Tyson. I know Don's in the room. Thank you, Don, for your support. And Phil Sackwitz, a former chairman of the advisory committee. So thank you, Phil, for supporting. As we look and try to reinvent how AUSA supports Army civilians, I am looking at expanding the board to some degree, so you may get a phone call or 2 from me as we look into that. So with that, I would like to welcome Dr. Agnes Garvin-Schaefer. She is the Assistant Secretary of the Army for Manpower and Reserve Affairs, and thank you so much for coming today and speaking. It's going to take me a minute to get through all the things she's responsible for, but it is a long list. As the Assistant Secretary, she leads, of course, the Manpower, Personnel, and Reserve Component Affairs for the Department of the Army, and is the Principal Advisor to the Secretary of the Army for Policy and Performance Oversight of Human Resources, Training, Readiness, Mobilization, Military Health Affairs, Force Structure, Manpower Management, Equal Opportunity, Equal Employment Opportunity, Marketing, and other critical aspects of the job. So just a long list. Dr. Schaefer's prior career assignments include being a senior advisor to the Deputy Secretary of Defense and Undersecretary of Defense for Personnel and Readiness, which was my boss in my last job, and being a senior national security researcher at the RAND Corporation, a federally funded research and development center for the Department of Defense, where she provided nonpartisan, objective research and analysis and developed a deep understanding of the Department of Defense over a 17-year run at RAND. So thank you for that service. So with that, ma'am, I will hand the podium over to you and appreciate you coming. How about a round of applause?
Well, thank you so much for those wonderful words and the introduction. About 5 weeks ago, we also found out in MNRA that we now have responsibility for equids, all Army equids, and that has turned into all Army animals. So in addition to what you mentioned, apparently I'm now a zookeeper too. So, good morning, everyone. Good morning to the panelists and attendees. Thank you so much for joining us for this AUSA Civilian Showcase. It's a great privilege to stand here before you today alongside some remarkable Army leaders on our panel, including Lieutenant General Gervais, Lieutenant General Mohan, and Ms. Karen Payne. I'm absolutely thrilled to be here. As some of you know, when I came into my position, off the bat, I said that I wanted to elevate our attention on our civilian workforce and think about total force, not just reserve component, active component, but also our amazing civilians. So we're going to be talking about ways in which we're preparing our force to evolve into the Army of 2030 through the power of innovation. The history of our civilian workforce within the Army traces its roots back to the early days of the Continental Army. During that time, civilians served as clerks, diligently documenting and organizing information. Their efforts allowed our commanders to make informed decisions that ultimately led to victory in the fight for American independence. Throughout history, Army civilians have continued to play a pivotal role in the various military conflicts, contributing an array of skills and services from logistics to administration, research to technology. Civilians are an integral part of our workforce, supporting our soldiers and ensuring they are equipped and prepared to face any challenge. The Army civilian population is currently 262,000 strong, and I extend my deepest gratitude for your unwavering dedication and commitment to our force. The Army would not be the Army without you. Speaking of dedication, I would also like to acknowledge and celebrate our outstanding participation in the Federal Employee Viewpoint Survey. The Office of Personnel and Management has revealed that the Army ranked first among the service branches in participation rates. The Civilian Human Resources Agency led the charge with an impressive 54.4% participation rate, followed by U.S. Army North at 50% and Space and Missile Defense Command at 46.7%. This achievement is a testament to our collective commitment to excellence. Let's give ourselves a round of applause. In January 2023, I joined the Manpower and Reserve Affairs Office and have had the honor to work with an absolutely amazing team that works tirelessly to enhance the lives of our Army soldiers, civilians, and their families. Throughout my professional journey, my focus has revolved around improving the Army's readiness to align with the objectives of our national security strategy, specifically improving the quality of life of our active reserve and component members and their families. A healthy force is a ready force, and I firmly believe that if we take care of our people, our people will take care of the nation. Moreover, my overarching priority is the strategic modernization of our personnel policies, processes, and systems across our entire spectrum of the Army People Strategy. This encompasses how we recruit and hire, how we nurture and manage talent, and how we foster a workplace culture that empowers civilians to thrive and advance our careers within the Army. Our efforts are dedicated to highlighting cross-cutting issues such as increased permeability across the total force, enhanced flexibility in talent management and career opportunities, and the improved alignment of people's competencies with both civilian and military career fields. These endeavors are designed to optimize operations for our civilians and elevate the overall quality of our personnel. The Civilian Implementation Plan, an integral component of the Army People Strategy, places special emphasis on hiring civilians and ensuring that the Army remains competitive and attracting top talent, even when compared to our other employers. We cannot afford to lose sight of the efforts required to recruit the necessary skill sets and personnel to maintain robust career paths, guarantee immediate and long-term readiness, and construct the Army of 2030 in the face of adversity. That's why innovation is critical now more than ever. And if anybody knows me, you know that innovation is something that I have very much embraced and have been nudging the system across the Army. I know that change is hard, but we really, really need to attack this on both the civilian and the military side. Innovation at its core is about discovering new and better ways of doing things. It's not limited to technology alone. It encompasses innovative ideas, new ways of managing, and fresh perspectives and processes towards age-old challenges. It's about embracing change and adapting to stay relevant in today's rapidly evolving world. Let me share with you how we are harnessing innovation with a few accomplishments from the Civilian Implementation Plan that deserve some recognition. First, we launched an onboarding program for new Army civilians. The Civilian Human Resources Agency is executing an enterprise-wide onboarding program, while Army commands are implementing local onboarding programs at their respective locations. This ensures that our new hires are equipped with the tools and knowledge they need to excel from day one. We've established and resourced a supervisor development and certification program. We understand that effective leadership is crucial to our success. Hence, we have developed a comprehensive mandatory supervisor development and certification program to nurture and equip our leaders with the skills they need to guide their teams toward success. And lastly, we identified Army's mission-critical occupations for FY24 and 25. Our team is giving these mission-critical occupations priority when allocating positions in civilian personnel acquisition programs. This ensures that our most critical roles are staffed with the best talent. Our workforce is evolving. For example, attitudes are changing about job security and what a professional journey looks like. Gone are the days when people joined an organization for 30 years. Today, we encourage job hopping every 4 to 5 years to gain diverse experience and stay ahead of our careers. Our workers themselves are also changing. As we operate in an increasingly competitive environment, managing talent across multiple generations becomes tantamount. We have people entering the workforce who have grown up with our newest means of technology, and those are still adapting to it. We bridge these knowledge gaps and benefits from the best of both worlds across cross-generational collaboration. This shift highlights the importance of solidifying an innovative workforce across our Army. But what exactly is an innovative workforce? And how do we build it? We cultivate a culture where innovation is not just encouraged, but expected. It means fostering an environment that promotes opportunity to maximize talents, and where every employee, from the newest recruit to the most seasoned leader, is empowered to think creatively and contribute ideas. If I have one accomplishment in my job while I'm in it, it is to minimize the number of times I hear change is hard. I want us to embrace change because it means we are continuing to evolve. So I'm hoping that during our discussions today, we can really embrace that and share lessons learned about the things that commands have been doing and sharing those best practices, because we do not do that enough. So our mission is clear. We are preparing our force to become the Army of 2030 through innovation. For the first time in history, the Army has fully defined civilian readiness at strategic, functional, organizational, and individual levels as part of the Civilian Implementation Plan. These definitions are encapsulated in what we call Army Civilian Readiness Indicators. These indicators will guide us in developing a more comprehensive set of categorizations for the civilian workforce. Addressing factors such as manning levels, training, technical competencies, and more. This work builds on the current measures used by the Army in its strategic readiness assessment process. And soon, much like our military personnel, the Army civilian team will be evaluated using these expanded readiness indicators. The outcome will be a real-time temperature check for the Army civilian workforce as they support the priorities of the Army and our nation. One crucial aspect of strengthening innovation in our workforce is telling the Army story. We must do a better job of promoting civilian jobs. We know we have a knowledge gap with the public. People still don't know that we have lots of opportunities for civilian careers in the Army. We're working hard to change that. I, for one, have never seen a commercial for an Army civilian, and that breaks my heart, and we're going to change that. I've been to several mentoring sessions with high school kids, and they don't know that we have Army civilians, and that breaks my heart too. So we really need to attack the issue of marketing and getting the word out about the amazing careers that you can have as an Army civilian. And again, I think that some of our panelists are going to be touching on how we can share those lessons learned on getting that word out. Remember, each Army soldier, civilian, and family member is a recruiter. Even our veterans can serve as sounding posts, mentors, offering valuable insights from their wealth of experience and their Army story. Our goal is to acquire and retain top talent, and this requires us to change the way we do things. We need to talk to each other about our Army experiences and why we decided to answer the call to service. We need conversations at the senior leader level and all the way down our ranks. A diverse, talented, strong, healthy, and resilient force is the most important indicator of our readiness. The Army's personnel, programs, and initiatives are focused on taking care of our people because we lead with our values, and doing so is essential to the readiness required to accomplish our mission and defend those who depend on us. Let's embrace the power of conversation to foster innovation in our workforce. Let's refine what it means to be innovative, not just as individuals, but as an organization. Let's embrace our new programs and initiatives which promise to bring civilians from all walks of life into a life of service. Let's continue the conversation beyond today. Let's begin the conversation now. It's through our collective efforts that we can shape a brighter and more innovative future for our organization. Our innovation starts with a conversation, and that's why we're here today. Together, we are partnering to ensure Army civilians are the best, brightest, and ready to support the warfighter and the future. Thank you for being here, and I look forward to the panel discussion.
Ma'am, I did want to, just real quickly, thank you for the insightful comments. It sounds like you've built a great plan, you've got the metrics to enable it, and now it's all about execution. So thank you so much for taking that on. On behalf of AUSA, I did want to give you a small token of our appreciation for speaking, and glad that you can hang around for a little bit. But thank you, ma'am, for that.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thanks. Do you want me to open it?
Yeah. No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thanks. All right, let me find my place here. And I would like to now invite our panelists to the stage, and we can begin the panel. We're very fortunate to have Army senior leaders from the 3 commands that employ the largest number of Army civilians here with us today. Following our panel discussions, we'll have some time for questions and answers, so think about what questions you may want to ask these great leaders once we get done. The panel discussions today are going to focus on where we are currently with our Army civilians and where we need to go in the future, and how we're telling the Army story and trying to, create a better depiction of how Army civilians really support the Army itself. So we have the honor of being joined by 3 exceptional leaders, each representing the dynamic relationship between our Army and civilian corps. When you think about Army civilians, people like to talk about the 3 components of our Army: the active duty, the reserve component, and the National Guard. But within the active duty component, about a third of that are Army civilians. They are dedicated to the Army's mission. They are working full-time for the Army. As far as I'm concerned, by definition, they are part of that active component of the Army. And their mission is really simple. They serve those who serve, whether they're in a depot doing depot maintenance, or they're at the Corps of Engineers doing engineering work for facilities, building facilities, et cetera. Or they're training soldiers and developing leaders. So they do a lot of things serving the Army and improving readiness for our both current and future readiness. And this panel, to me, stands as a testament to the importance of the integration between military and civilian efforts. During this discussion, we'll dive into their insights, experiences, and perspectives. We'll explore how their leadership has empowered collaboration, innovation, hopefully a few pearls for you, ma'am, and resilience in the face of complex challenges. Without further ado, let's jump into today's civilian showcase. The panelists are Lieutenant General Maria Gervais. General Gervais currently serves as the Deputy Commanding General and Chief of Staff of the Training and Doctrine Command down at Fort Eustis, Virginia, where I've spent a good portion of my career, back and forth. Thank you, ma'am, for coming. Lieutenant General Christopher Mohan. General Mohan currently serves as the Deputy Commanding General and Chief of Staff of the Army Materiel Command down in Huntsville, Alabama. So thank you, General Mohan. He and I have known each other since he was a captain and I was about a GS-12. So it's hard for me to say General Mohan, but awesome. You've done great things for the Army, Chris. And Ms. Karen Payne. Ms. Payne currently serves as the Director of Human Resources for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, where they do a lot of innovative things, I think. And not to put any pressure on you, Karen, but with how they manage their talent in the Corps. So with that, we will pose 3 rounds of questions for our panelists, and I'd like to get started with round 1. The Army recognizes the need to adapt changing operational requirements and emerging technologies in order to remain a future-ready force. During this first round, we'll discuss the current challenges each of these panelists face within their commands and any lessons they may have learned along the way in overcoming these challenges. So let's get started with Ms. Payne. Ma'am, first question is for you. Innovation is the practice of doing things differently through new methods, ideas, or products in order to meet a challenge. From your perspective, what is an innovative practice your command is using to address a current challenge?
I think my mic is, can everybody hear me? Okay, so it's on. All right, fantastic. Well, thank you. And innovation, I do love the word innovation. So just a little bit about the USACE. Our mission is engineering solutions for the toughest engineering challenges, and that's so wherever there's an engineering challenge, USACE is right there. We're about 38,500 civilians and about 1,200 active duty, reserve, and National Guard. You know, with the Corps, we never know. I'm an old ER nurse, and so I always kind of like, I kind of consider the Corps as like a triage center. We never know what's going to come in next. We have our military side, but then we also have our civil works. Whenever there's a disaster or something that's going on, whether in the country or outside, USACE is usually there standing close, right by FEMA, and of course, Big Army too. So because of that, we do have to innovate. You know, it's just, we were talking about my group, kind of the often cited definition of insanity is doing things over and over and over again and expecting a different result, but always having the same result. So with USACE, we're always looking for new ways to do things. Main reason is because we've doubled in size just in the last few years, and we just probably will continue to double in size with all the things that's going on. So we really have to innovate. That was kind of the basis of it, and what we do, even our engineers, is that innovation. But one of the greatest barriers to our program is not having the right people, and that's why with General Spellman, his number one thing is people, because we have to have our folks in the right people at the right place at the right time in order to be there for our country, and so that kind of is the start and the basis for what we're doing. When I came to USACE about 5.5 years ago, I asked some different data points like where have we gone, how many people do we recruit, how many are we retaining, and a lot of it was like, I'll give that to you, Ms. Payne, about 3 weeks, that data, and my staff, we are all looked at like, we just can't do this, we can't continue in having that delay. So one of the bases of things, and kind of thinking engineering-wise, is you have to have a base before you build the structure. People analytics is our base. So, the goal is that we don't do things on maybe, that we kind of did always before, and that's why we're doing it now, is really we need informed decision-making to be able to make those decisions that will take us to the next level. And so in building that, we do have a people analytics team. Mr. Jerry Dorsey, who's in the audience here, is the lead for that. We are actually, we have any kind of information you would like regarding people, and I mean whether it's recruitment, retention, training, workman's comp, onboarding, if you're just trying to find somebody, we have it in our dashboards, and it's at the fingertips of our commanders. So they can ask for reports if they like, but they can have it at their fingertips. And so they can they look into this information, and it's real time, real data. So it's not 3 weeks old or a month old kind of thing. So we have dashboards, we have all these metrics. That is very important, and I know the Civilian Implementation Plan is really working, looking at people metrics. So those all in there. And then, we decided, hey, well, we really need to look at people analytics across the command too, and not just in HR. And so our command has been very active, and we have all of our different divisions, and I have to say I have great divisional commands and district commanders that are very interested in this, and so it wasn't a hard sell to be able to work people analytics. And then with the help of MNRA, and many thanks to MNRA for allowing us to do this, we're going to lead the Army People Analytics team. And so the first meeting will be November, so after, if you have any points of contacts, please send it to us, and we'll be working with Dr. Four on this, with being able to bring up people analytics, because, again, it's so important for that base. The other issue that came is for innovation is, so we have the people analytics, then we had to look, okay, well, how about a platform? I don't know about you, but I don't like USA Jobs. Been around a long time, and I just do not like USA Jobs. Hopefully somebody from OPM is not here, but it is, it's archaic. It's really very non-user friendly. And I've had, kids go in there, older folks, journeyman level, and just go in and they'll say the same thing. So we actually have a platform now. And we've got 3 modules. We've been working with Army and DoD on this, so many thanks again, MRA and G1 team. There's 3 modules. One is for career events. So when we go, we can tell at moment's notice how many people we've seen at that point in time. And I know that Charles has been using the vendor 2 yellow for this. But you can go in, get any information in it, and be able to, you can look at different kinds of people if you're looking for engineers, civil, mechanical, et cetera. We have now over 12,000 resumes in our repository. We're also going to be having one of our events just to look at our people that are already in the site. But the second module is an internal, so anytime we're going to do deployments or transfers, we can use this. And then third module, which we will be bringing up very soon, is our direct hire authority. So any position that's covered by a direct hire authority, we will no longer have to use USA Jobs. We'll have a banner in USA Jobs, so if anybody's in there, they can go into our URL and be in our system, because people do go in that, so we don't want to forget those folks. But in order to get your resume in, it takes about 2 minutes. It's very user-friendly again. So our positions, about 93% of our positions are covered by a direct hire authority. I do want to get to 100%, and so people that know me know that I always say that 100% direct hire authority, not only for USACE, but I think for Army, is getting to that, so that we can do creative things and be innovators. The third one is a Talent Acquisition Center for Excellence. So we have full-time recruiters. Now they work with ACMA, so we're not doing this alone. And with regards to being able to hire fast, and my other goal, and people laugh sometimes, my team sometimes chuckles on this, but I want to do one-day hiring. We're about 35 days for our direct hire authority, which is great. It's absolutely wonderful. But we've lost people in 35 days. And I do not want to lose anybody whether it's industry or even another command, because we were too slow. And 35 days for the best engineer is just way too slow. 1 day is really where we should be at. So the TASTE team, it's called Talent Acquisition Center for Excellence, has full-time recruiters. Plus, we have over 300 identified people within USACE that are part of our Talent Acquisition Community of Interest group. Some of those are full-time recruiters for either their command, the regional command, or the district, or they're very interested. Now, I would say that's great. We have 300 people that are very interested, but I also want some structure to it because I like structure. So we actually have trainings, we have guidance and policy on what those folks will do, roles and responsibilities, and we'll be having our second training in the second week in November. And if anybody's interested in maybe participating, please let me know. We can, we're going to be having a virtual or in person down in Atlanta. And that's really be proactive. Again, reactive is no good. We've got to be proactive. One-day hiring, being able to identify that folks in that. With regards to the proactive too, like we're going to be doing a new grad event in the fall. And actually, while I was here yesterday, I was thinking this morning I'm going to invite the parents to it. I want to invite the parents, so sorry, team. They're looking at me like, oh, no, Karen. But we have to get to parents and guardians of folks to get them interested and let them know about the Army, too, and about USACE. So every step we kind of take, we want to push that envelope a little bit more. And, of course, direct hire authority, being able to have those and being able to get things done with using non-traditional kinds of method. To go along with that, I would say the biggest thing is collaboration and communication and changing the culture of your organization and being able to identify that not every position needs to be panel. Like I always tell my managers, if you're paneling at a GS5, you've got panel members, please find another occupation. Don't be a manager, because if you need to panel somebody at a GS5 level, you really probably should be doing something different. Let's make decisions and let's make them fast. So I will leave it at that.
Great. Thanks, Ms. Payne. Breaking through the USA Jobs paradigm, that's innovation at work there, because that thing's a challenge. But all right, shifting over to General Mohan. Sir, over the past decade, we've witnessed a significant shift in the career landscape. What's AMC doing differently to acquire and retain a civilian workforce that better supports the warfighter in the future, given this changing landscape?
Yeah, hey, so thanks for that question, and first, thanks for having me up here. And some people who are sitting in the audience or online might ask, Hey, so what's a military leader doing sitting on a panel like this? Look, simply put, we can't do it without you guys. We don't do it without you guys, and I learned at the rank of colonel when I went to an industrial facility. I commanded a depot, so I was exposed very early in my more strategic assignments to the power of the civilian workforce. And you can have, those epiphanies. And my epiphany was when I sat down with my first leader meeting, and I call you guys leaders, not managers, not supervisors, but I call you leaders. When I sat down in my first leader meeting and realized that unlike when I commanded a battalion where I was the senior officer, but also the senior in the amount of experience, that paradigm had shifted. As we went around the room, and every single one of my direct reports, my leaders had more experience than I did. And so I very quickly realized the keys to success were leveraging those talents and leveraging their experience. And I went to school, quite frankly. And I learned so much more, and I think we were much more successful because of that. Fast forward to where we are right now, and I will tell you that in Army Material Command, I think we represent the best of military-civilian integration of anywhere in the Army. Of course, I'm proud of what we do. No offense, Maria, but look, in all of our commands, we have dedicated civilian SESs sitting right next to our uniformed commanders. My counterpart, Marion Wicker, we sit beside each other at the table and work to solve all the hard problems we have, and there's plenty. So leveraging that talent is incredibly important. And so what are we doing about it? I will tell you that the way we look at it, it's a wheel, if you can imagine a wheel, right? And so you've got acquire talent, develop talent, employ talent, and retain talent. But right in the middle of that wheel, and we've got a strategy that is being developed and is being rolled out by Christina Fries, our acting G1, and Ms. Wicker. And so we've got strategic goals for each one of those four tenets. But sitting in the middle is the culture piece, and culture is, I think, more important. Is the most important thing. We have to sell the impact that our civilians make on a daily basis. You are not invisible. Our civilians right now, our teammates, my teammates, are the ones that are leading the charge when we talk about telemakmaintenance that we're doing with the Ukrainian Army and our partners in Ukraine. You go into any telemakmaintenance meeting, and it's virtual, and we have linked our engineers from across the Army, our item managers, with the actual crews that are firing the guns to help them solve tough challenges. And there won't be a green suiter there. So again, we cannot do it without you. And that culture piece of talking about the contributions, look, it's not just a career, it's a calling. We need to attack that culture piece and the articulation of how important it is what our civilian workforce does, just like we're attacking the recruiting challenges we have for green suiters right now. So we've got a lot of, in our strategy, we've got a lot of specific things that we're doing. Now look, I've never been on USA Jobs other than just take a look. I've never had to manipulate it, but I know just me having to take a look, it is challenging. It is absolutely challenging. The size of the resumes that are required. So we have a pilot program to reduce it down to 5 pages. I think 5 pages is still too much, but I think that we're on the right track. We are being more targeted with the folks that we try to hire, the amount of money we pay them, and pushing down those necessary authorities, classification authorities, direct hiring authority. I love what you're doing with direct hiring authority. We're pushing that down to the absolute lowest level as well. And then as we think about that upfront acquire piece, agree that we are segmenting using data to segment all the different steps in the hiring process. And a lot of times, to be totally honest, we have found out that the enemy is us because hiring actions are sitting on leaders' desk, and it's taking too long to execute panels, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we've segmented that out, and now my boss, General Hamilton, is holding commanders responsible for those segments and pointing the finger back at us. The other thing that from that acquire piece is going after and rolling out. We've had tremendous success in on-the-spot hiring at BEA, on-the-spot offers. We have commands that are doing many BEA-type events all across the United States, particularly using those authorities that we use during those type of hiring events to shorten the hiring practice, using direct hire authority. Because let's face it, I agree 35 days is too long. 100 days, who can go without a paycheck for 100 days? And we have to acknowledge that. So I will tell you, it starts with the strategy for us, and then the implementation, strategic implementation, and accountability that's built into the system.
All right. Thank you, General Mohan. Great. General Gervais, from the uniform perspective, carrying on that theme that General Mohan outlined, what does the warfighter need from the Army Civilian Corps?
Yeah, can you guys hear me? Okay, good, because my little green light is not lighting up, no matter how many times I pushed it. So, excellent. So first of all, Honorable Schaefer and the entire team, thank you for the opportunity to be sitting up here on this panel, really to be able to share some of the insights and the experience that I've had throughout the Army. And I'm going to tell you right now, I would not be sitting up here if it hadn't been for the great civilians that I had the pleasure of serving with throughout my career. And many are in here right now that took me under their wing. You know, we have Mr. Don Tyson, you know, who at one point told me I spoke pig Latin because I was talking about chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear, and he taught me how to make sure that you put it in translatable language so that people could understand. And then, you know, I have the former AXM, IMCOM, SESs that are in here, Dave Tyndall, Randy Robinson, and also Diane Randon, who took a young colonel under their wing because I was kind of different from everybody else in the command that I had. And the command just happened to be, you know, 98% civilian who was focused on, you know, the protecting our training lands. It was Army Environmental Command so that we could ensure readiness for the Army. And so I will tell you, it's through those valuable experiences that I've gleaned and their mentorship, their leadership, and the role that they, being role models, that is one of the reasons that I am sitting up here. So I can't thank you enough for that. Now, as you take a look at the question, you know, from a uniform perspective, what does the warfighter need from the Army Civilian Corps? And I will tell you, the first thing, and my good buddy, who I agree, you have the best civilians, and we have the best civilians too in the Corps of Engineers because we have the best civilian. But you know, as you take a look at it, the very first premise that is the most important thing that I learned early on in my career is, number one, we are a team. We are a team even though we are kind of been differently, right? We got green suiters, we have civilians, we have contractors, right? We have others that are supporting us. But at the end of the day, it is how do you bring that whole team together so that you can leverage the expertise, the experience, and the knowledge from everybody and bring it to bear, which makes us, you know, the best equipped, the best led, you know, the best trained, the most respected, the most feared Army, right? And it takes all of us. And that was the first thing that I learned. It is about being part of that team and making sure that we have an environment that ensures that it is a inclusive team and all members feel valued. I will tell you, hands down, we all understand that we have to be competent and we have to be committed, we have to be passionate and dedicated to getting the job done, right? Because at the end of the day, it does come down to what, as the Chief of Staff of the Army and the Secretary talk about all the time, we have to be able to field this Army for our nation, and it takes all of us to do that. And so as you take a look at that from a uniform perspective, and I'll go a little bit into from the TRADOC perspective, some of the challenges, some of the recruiting challenges, more from what I've been seeing on the other side of the job, which is getting the green suiters in. But I will tell you, we have lots of opportunities to also focus on our great civilian corps here in the recruitment efforts as we're going forward. And so, you know, it really does come down to getting the right talent, right? Having the right talent with the right skills, the right, you know, those behaviors, skills, and attributes that we need in that position at that time. And so a lot of what we've done inside of TRADOC is, as we've taken a look at our civilian implementation plan, nested with the Army People Strategy and the great work that we participate with our teammates up in the department, we really take a look at how do we manage that talent, and how do we actually develop that talent as we're going forward so that we can capitalize on it in the right place, the right time. And, some of that's challenging in some of the things that we do within TRADOC, because if you think about it, yes, we have our installations, we have our training base, we have our schoolhouses, where we're actually providing that skill set for the Army. We also have our civilian leader development piece of that. But we also have the United States Army Recruiting Command, that is located all across the United States, in addition to all of our professors of military science, our senior ROTC programs that are across the nation. How do we get the talent in the right place that we need to support that mission set too, across the nation? And it's all different, and they experience it just like we do. And so some of the challenges that we see sometimes as we're trying to get it in place is, number one, the airlines are taking all of our pilots, and so we're short instructor pilots in Fort Novaso, Alabama. And but we still have to get our instructor pilots so that we can put our trainees in seats and produce pilots for our Army. We had to look at very innovative ways in terms of how did we recruit and overcome that challenge, and how did we hire differently with a different pay grade. So we had to utilize all of the different authorities to make sure that we were able to do it. I would also say this, as we're looking at the future, because, and the thing we have to keep in mind, so we are where we are right now, and the world is changing, and we're all seeing it. We're seeing what's happening with Generation Z, which are who we are recruiting now, both on the green suiter side and the civilian side. And it's different, and I'll talk about that a little later. But we have Generation A that's coming right behind. Generation A are 7th graders right now. They are 7th graders right now who are already coding, who are in 7th grade and say, here's my path after high school, right? And then if you take that and then we weigh it against what do we need in the future, especially from an operational environment threat perspective, what the Army needs to look like in the future. And you look at things like, data. You look at being a digital native. You look at autonomy. You look at human-machine interface, integration, right? You look at all those different skill sets. So, as we're looking at it, and I'm thinking about it, and Honorable Schaefer knows this, I've been thinking about this really hard. I'm like, how do we get at those Gen A's? How do we start talking to those Gen A's right now? Because we have to be able to do all of that, just as the world is changing as we're going forward. So, as we're looking from the warfighter perspective, I think we have to realize, and the chief said this yesterday in the Eisenhower luncheon, he said, we're looking at our headquarters being leaner, right? So leaner, and then what does that reach back? What we have to think our way through is, what is that leaner, and what is that reach back, and who, and where is it? And then what are those skill sets that we need? So at the end of the day, but what does it come down to? We need valued team members, competent, passionate, dedicated, just like you are now, who want to crush it and get the job done and keep us where we are in terms of our ability to field an Army for our nation. So I'll shut up because I get really passionate. I need to shut up right now.
Oh, great insights from all three of y'all. Thank you so much for that round one. Doing wonderful things, and really we need to find a way to how to grab their best practices and share them. Direct hire authority, it's a wonderful thing. In my own experience, it seemed to have a little bureaucracy start to creep into it, which was extending the time to direct hire. But if we could get it down to a day, that would be such a winner, because the talent's there, but it's only there for a minute, and then boom, somebody's going to grab it. So we've got to be able to get to it, and then we've got to better define, what's our role on the team, Army civilians. Teams, we make a great team, but we have to understand, are we an offensive lineman, or are we a receiver, or are we a quarterback? And what's our role on the team? And that, we'll get into that a little bit later. But let's move on to round two. It's vital that the Army continues to equip civilians with the necessary skills to adapt to emerging technologies and digital transformation of the future. In this round, we'll discuss future capabilities and skills that are required to ensure Army civilians remain effective and productive in this rapidly changing environment. General Mohan, starting with you this round. Looking through your command lens, what do you see in the future that must be planned for, resourced, and addressed today?
Okay, so thank you for the question. And I thought you were only going to give me easy questions. I thought we were friends.
We were, but
So I'll go back to, and I'm going to segment it down. So first, plan for. The first thing is that you have to have a plan, right? And it's got to be across all of your processes and your business systems. So I'll go back to the culture piece. Embedded in that planning is that we need to approach development of our civilian workforce just like we approach development of our General Officer Corps. We have to put the same type of attention, for example, when I'm sitting a panel to hire a senior civilian, just like if I'm sitting one of the Brigadier General or Major General boards. So the preparation needs to be part of that same process. And that starts back where with our strategy. That strategy to get those best athletes to that point. And if you don't have a strategy, it'll happen, but it'll happen by chance. So we have rolled out a strategy that's incredibly important to us as we work through how do we acquire, develop, train, and or employ, and then and retain that type of talent or the talent we need. And individually also, so we have an OIB modernization strategy. We've gotten incredible support from Congress as we look to modernize our organic industrial base. But part of that strategy that Ms. Wicker, who really kicked this thing off and led it, was also how do we modernize it's not just about the machines, right? It's about the people that operate those machines. So embedded in that OIB modernization strategy is an important part that talks about the people part of it. Again, understanding that every organization is not the same. We have to acknowledge that in some of our industrial-based facilities, we have generations of employees, teammates that have worked in there, and they're not moving. So how do we take that generation and give them the necessary skills, the digital thread, data analytics, so that they can continue to thrive and keep pace with the modernization of the facilities? It's incredibly important to us, and we're attacking that. The second piece is what do we need to resource? We need to put our money where our mouth is with civilian education to ensure that every time I have an opportunity to go to Carnegie Mellon, for example, for a data analytics class, that we have the opportunity to send a senior civilian as well to those type organization or type training opportunities. Our old Depot Arsenal Leaders Program that I was very fortunate to participate in when I was a colonel, side by side with my civilian teammates who are also going through that same program. So we have to put our money where our mouth is when it comes to that. We also need to reward leaders who are doing well. Look, talent management in a lot of cases is about picking winners and losers. And rewarding our leaders who are doing well is incredibly important, and that's either with additional promotions, monetary awards, or whatever. But we have to understand that they're not just supervisors; they're leaders, and we have to reward them. And finally, I think that I have to say it when we talk about. So we talk about plan for, resourced, and let's talk about what needs to be addressed today. And I'm telling you, we have got to relook our current telework strategies, our current telework environment that we have created. We made a big deal about telework, and we followed the commercial industry into telework. And I'm just, quite frankly, we need to follow them back out of it. We have got to make smart decisions, and I'm saying it because I have control over the folks that report to me and leaders. I think you're phoning it in if you're teleworking all the time. And I'll just be blunt about it. And I've got a couple of examples that I'd like to highlight. So at a previous assignment that goes unnamed, I had an opportunity to see a kid that really literally grew up around my kids, who had been hired by another organization. And I had this kid over, we had this kid over for Thanksgiving, because I grew up, he grew up around our family. And I asked him what he was doing, and he was an intern. And I asked him, so how's it going? He said, well, we've got a really tight group of interns. And we decided that we were going to come into the office because we were 100% remote, because we thought we were missing something. We thought that we were missing something. And so these young kids took the opportunity and took it amongst themselves to start coming in. Fast forward about 3 weeks later, I was at an event, met another intern, same organization, and I said, hey, so you must know so-and-so. And the teammate looked at me and said, no, I don't know them. I said, I can't imagine the intern class is that big. She said, no, I'm on 100% remote. And so what is she missing by not working side by side with her teammates? And what was she missing by not being able to walk into your supervisor's office, or walking down to Marion's office to say, hey, Marion, hey, look, I'm struggling with this. Let's talk about it. It doesn't need to be a Teams meeting. It doesn't need to be a planned event. It needs to be spontaneous. And I think we're losing that fight right now within our workforce, and we collectively have to change it. We need to follow industry back out, because, quite frankly, the capitalist nature of us is showing that our current strategy is not working, and we have to follow it. But all of us have a role in that. Telework is and look, I find that when I have a whole bunch of evaluations, it's good for me to be in a locked room doing those evaluations. I think that people who process contracts and do other type of quiet work, lawyers that are writing cases and stuff like that, I think there's a role for it. But it is not a right. It is not an integral part. And if people want to leave because they get a better deal somewhere, so be it. We've got to sell our culture. We have to talk to them about what is important to us, which is being part of the Army's team, America's team. We're America's biggest team. But this is a challenge that we absolutely have to discuss and work our way out of it. And so send all your hate mail to Maria, and with that, I'll stop talking. And just like you, I get passionate about it because I worry about our younger generation. I worry about them understanding what the Army culture is about, being part of something bigger than themselves, and I worry that they're not getting the training necessary, and we've got to address it.
Yeah, General Mohan, you really hit on a very sensitive subject. And I can tell you, my last job as the CEO of the Defense Commissary Agency, tens of thousands of employees around the world. And I was invited and joined this thing called the Wall Street Journal CEO Council. And we had a physical meeting. And although we were close to $5 billion in sales, I was a small fish in that room in terms of the CEOs in the room. And we discussed this very issue for hours. And at the end, it was like, you can get a lot of functions done remotely.
Absolutely.
But two things you cannot do, and you will never be able to do remotely. And one is building the bench and trying to teach others and how to get to the next level. And two is implementing a corporate culture. And organizations survive on their culture. So two major issues. You either got to figure out how you address that virtually, or you've got to bring folks back in, and one or the other. That was the outcome of that particular meeting just a few months ago. So anyway, but great insights. General Gervais, from a TRADOC's perspective, which civilian capabilities do you believe we should focus on first to better support the multi-domain operations we see in the future?
Yeah, so I'm going to start off with, not to beat a dead horse here. However, I'm going to tell you my experience on the other side. I spent a lot of time traveling the United States, going to places like our recruiting stations, going into our senior ROTC, junior ROTC programs, into our military entrance processing stations. But I also have the great opportunity, I meet with a lot of our civilian leaders in industry, because we have a Partner for Your Success program where they want to partner with the military so that as somebody comes in the military and they're skilled, they're credentialed, they have the opportunity when they transition to be guaranteed a job interview. Not guaranteed a job, guaranteed an interview. But in those discussions, as we've all been talking about the challenges that we're all experiencing in the recruiting environment. I mean, they are forming these partnerships with us because they want the pipeline. They're having as many challenges as the same thing as we just talked about. I will say the one thing that they did talk to me was the concern with their companies in terms of when they were teleworking and what they lost and the steps that they're having to take as they're moving forward. And so I think COVID showed us a lot of different ways to do things. I think what we have to understand is the balance inside of that and what you must do, as you come in and has to be physically present for, and what you can do in a telework status. I will tell you, his concern that he just briefed is exactly what I have heard over and over from CEOs of big companies as they've been moving forward. So, Chris, I'm not trying to beat that dead horse. I'm just trying to reemphasize
Oh, we can
that.
beat it some more if you'd like.
Okay. But, team, getting back to kind of the questions, what should we really focus on first? And if you take a look at it right now, and I kind of wanted to kind of think through what is happening in the environment right now, what is going to happen in the environment as we're going forward, and what are the generations, that are actually who we're recruiting and who we're going to recruit. So I gave you a little bit of that earlier on. But, as you take a look at it, let's just talk about it. Data. Data is becoming like the most important thing that ever, right? And as you take a look at it, how do we posture ourselves quickly for data? How do we have, the right AUSA, the right scientists? We understand what we need to do with data because it is already key to a lot of things. And if you think about it, and one of the great vendors I visited yesterday reiterated an article that he had read, and I've read it too. But 90% of the data has been produced in the last 2 years. So we're just on the cusp of this. So the real question is, how do we become data literate? How do we have the right skill sets to manage the data, to understand the data, to understand how it informs decision making? How do we have the right tools? But then the second piece that follows very quickly right behind that, how do we become digital? How do we move into this digital age very quickly? Because Gen A is right behind us, and Gen Z is already really living there, and they're seeing the changes, and they want the technology, right? And so if you think about that right there, what are the tools that we need in place? What are the hiring actions that we need in place? Okay, because quite frankly, first of all, I am absolutely impressed with the number of days that you can get somebody hired, right? Okay, and Honorable Schaefer, I don't mean this in a negative way, but we are unable to get a young kid to come in the Army, as quickly as what you just laid out. Because, a couple things, right? Our tools are not able to do it, right? You go into some of these digital platforms, and you can quickly get your resume in. They can tell you, okay, answer these additional questions for a personality screen. They can tell you, okay, we want a background check, and here's what you're going to go do it, right? The concern I have as we're moving forward is we need to get in the digital age, but the thing we really have to look at is what we can't do is get in the digital age, but hammer ourselves right back into our same institutional processes, right? Okay, because if we're on LinkedIn, but man, then we just link you over to USA Jobs. I said I wasn't going to bring it, but I did. Okay, but if we do that, these kids, they're going to walk away, right? They're not going to be there. So, I think we have to really, from a digital, how do we become digital natives quickly? And because we're going to have to, right? Because we have autonomous, we know, autonomy is already here. It's starting to evolve. It's going to be getting quicker. So we need those skill sets to understand it. And then that human-machine interface skills. What are those skills? I would say as we're taking a look at it, one of the things we do inside of TRADOC, we're working with our partners and all the stakeholders to include Army Futures Command as we're looking at the Army of 2040, right? Because we're in the process of trying to deliver the Army of 2030 right now. And what we do in this process is we take a look at it and say, what are those organizations' capabilities that we need? But then what are those knowledge, skills, and attributes and behaviors that we need? Now, I'm going to submit to you that we do a decent job, and I'm going to come back and explain decent in a minute, with understanding that from a military perspective. But I've been in the TRADOC DCG for, coming up on 18 months, and I don't think I've ever had one conversation that says, okay, if this is what we need from a green suiter side, what is the civilian skill set we would need to recruit that? And I said decent job because, right now we're trying to recruit Gen Z to deliver the Army of 2030 with certain skill sets, and we can't be thinking about that right now. We need to be telling recruiting command, and we need to be telling ourselves right now, what are those skill sets on both sides? We should have been doing this like 5-6 years ago, right? Because my theory is, if we're trying to recruit Gen Z and we're trying to steer the Titanic and move it right now, okay, by the time we get that thing moved, we're in the middle of Gen A, right? And Gen A is a little bit different. So, I'm thinking our way through that as we've been going through on it. So when we focus on the MOSs, and Greg Thompson's here from CAC, I think then that's the next step is, what is that balance and what is our civilian skill sets that we should be thinking about going forward? I think as you take a look at it, and then what are the other very innovative methods we can put in place to recruit the talent, right? Because we know it's so competitive. Look, ladies and gentlemen, you can go out to an Amazon warehouse right now, and they will pay you 70% of your work wage that day, right? So guess what? We're also used to what? Mid-month, end of month, once a month pay periods, right? Okay, that's not how kids, they want the flexibility, right, on it. So we got to think our way through, how would we do that? How would we have different recruiting ways to build our workforce? And I'll share a couple insights with you. One of the key ways, and you mentioned the word intern. I think the intern program is one that is just phenomenal. However, we need to educate and pursue that at a much greater degree than we do. Army Environmental Command, we were being bracked from Aberdeen to Fort Sam Houston when I was the commander. The way that we built that organization, because we had individuals, just like you had mentioned, Chris, we had individuals that had been in that organization since it had stood up, located in Edgewood Arsenal up in Aberdeen. And they were not going to move. But the great ORISE internship program, able to get them in, give them the job, right? Give them the experience, and then have the opportunity to hire them. So within TRADOC right now, I will tell you, we are leveraging the internship program across, not just at the TRADOC headquarters, but we are also across all of our centers of excellence right now. And we're doing it in a way that is allowing us to bring somebody in, and it's like, okay, you're going to be an intern to do this, but we are going to rotate you into different positions across TRADOC so that you can get that experience, and then we can understand which one you're very passionate about, number two, which one you're going to be able to perform better in and like the career path. And it's like a partnership between us. So I'm going to do something really strange here. Hannah, come up to the mic. I want you to tell them she graduated from Christopher Newport. Tell them what your degree is in. Tell them what you kind of been doing. Oh, okay.
test, test.
No pressure. No pressure, man.
I have a degree in cellular, molecular, and physiological biology. So I'm not really using that in my job that I have, but it gave me the tools that I need to perform well. So I started out with H2F, holistic health and fitness, because that was a little bit more in my niche. But I ended up with General Gervais. I've been with her for quite a while, and I do a lot of her trip planning and strategic engagement. So I get to write speeches, talking points, plan her travels, work with tons of different action officers from across the Army and TRADOC, and I get to learn a lot doing what I do.
And we also got you down to Edgewood Chemical Biological Center.
That's also true.
So she could see what we did? Yeah, so, so gain that experience, right? Thank you, Hannah. And so the internship program, coming in, and that gets, Honorable Schaefer, what you talked about. These kids want to figure out some of the things, what can they do, how can they do it? And so I think as we're taking a look at it inside, we're looking at how do we leverage internship programs, how do we leverage other partnerships, right? For example, I talked about how we, the U.S. Army, partners through Partners for Your Success with all our industry partners. Well, we're asking, how do you partner back with us, right? And how do we partner with colleges and universities? We have a partnership with William & Mary, which is right there in Newport News. And here was a gap we saw. We had a gap in terms of being able to understand how to better support USAREC and our Cadet Command in terms of understanding, the local markets, how to come in and provide assistance from a recruiting perspective. Well, William & Mary, through that partnership, we are able to have a great talent acquisition through getting a master's program, then allows them to go out and utilize that skill, within USAREC and Cadet Command, but also help us bring in talent that we need inside of TRADOC going forward. So the thing I'll end on with the civilian capabilities piece of this, we have to identify it early. We have to identify it as early as we are identifying what we need our future Army to do. And then we have to understand the changes that we have to make and where we need to go get it, right? Because Honorable Schaefer, you made an incredible point. When do we advertise our great civilian workforce and what you can do, right? I will tell you, when I've been out there with the recruiters, and I want you to think about this. We have so many that want to come in and serve, but they may not because of either medical, some other reason. Why aren't we at that point going, here is the opportunity for you to serve a little bit different way? Now, I'm going to tell you that's going to take a great education from within inside our workforce, because quite frankly, look, our recruiters they're popping and they're turning and burning. I'm sorry, you're not qualified. I'm moving on to find somebody else. What we got to do is we got to understand, how do we take that, hand it off, right? And then have the opportunity for that. Because there are so many people out there that want to do this and will do it, but they just don't understand. They just don't understand the different opportunities that are out there.
No, great input. Ms. Payne, I know anything to add from a core perspective in trying to, looking at your knowledge gaps and what you see the Army needs to address moving forward?
Before I get to that, I'll do it real quickly. I want to counter on the workplace transformation, just because I like to counter. I understand, and I understand your perspective on, how do we work in a hybrid organization? And I guess my personality is I don't go backwards, I just go forward. And, and it's just, and so we're working that. What does it mean? What are the right positions that are remote? What are the right positions that are telework? I can say for HR, I went from a 28% turnover just because HR people can walk, they can go anywhere. So I value my team because all my team members can go anywhere the next day if they'd like to. I'm now at a 5%, and that's just because of promotional. So for us, it has really worked. Now, it's not for every position, even the core. During COVID, we actually established a workplace transformation guidance. We leave it up to the commanders, and then the commanders, some of them leave it up to their district commanders. I say keep it local. In a sense of policy, even my divisions all operate differently. as long as you're fair within your division. But I think it's just something that we have to learn because of the new, the generations, and they are techie and all those kind of stuff. But how do we do it right? I think we just have to stay open to it. And I know you're not saying stay close, but it is a hard concept. But I think Army, we can do it. We can work this. If anything, we can lead. Maybe we don't look like what we're doing right now, but in the future, and we won't look like industry. But I just think the Army is really the greatest organization, and we can figure out the right mix in the right way. And so that's what the core we're doing is we're figuring out. I can't say we have the right answer. A lot of it is changing and developing managers too, because managers sometimes have their kind of old way of doing things, and this is how they like to do it. So a lot of that is education. But just to kind of wrap up on the skill gaps, we're finding it's really along with what we've been talking about is data competency, data fluency, being able. And some of the kids coming out, they're really good at the techie. They can do all the gaming. My 17-year-old son can go so many games at one time, and his head's thinking, his hands thinking. But what we're finding is they're all good at that. But how do they get from that to actually taking data? Then doing it in a very concise manner, setting up decision points for whether it's for themselves or for their leaders, being able to communicate that and being able to make those decisions very quickly. And at maybe sometimes crisis types of situations. And I think for us and for Army in general, that has to be done. And I think that is, I see a great weakness even in our engineers. They're real technical and all that kind of stuff, but that communication. And kind of going along with that is soft skills, how to communicate with each other, which kind of goes along with the whole workplace transformation too. And the other is leadership and being able to lead. I remember as a nurse, and I remember my one senior leader in my nursing class, and I was looking, I said, well, who should I ask? And she goes, you ask yourself first. You be the leader, even at that bedside. Then you go to the next step and the next level. So it is kind of that, is that we're all leaders. And from the junior people, when I talk to them and they say, well, I said, no, you're a leader. Let's think that, leader first, and then let's look at your technical skills. And I appreciate what Army's doing with the leadership and the trainings and everything, because we should, like the green suiters do, when you're captain, you go to captain school. It should be the same thing for our civilians. When you reach this milestone, you should go here. Or before that milestone, you should be doing this, and I'm glad that that's being laid out. So.
Thanks, Ms. Payne. And General Gervais, you wanted to follow up a little bit?
Yeah, just jumping on that point, and I know I answered the question from a multi-domain operations perspective, but I think as you take a look at other skill sets that we need, and I'm in complete agreement with you, and I think this is why it goes back to what Chris Mohan was talking about, culture, right? Yeah. Because we even see it on our side. Culture is one of the most important things, the important thing that you have to establish. And what we see right now is a challenge in terms of the life skills, the resiliency, the soft skills that you saw. So, as this is changing, what we have to think about is how do we come back and address that part of it. And some of that is hard to do if it's remote, right? Going forward, and even communicating across email. So some things you have to get after. But some other skill sets that we got to think about right now. The need for specialized language skills is key, especially, we have the Defense Language Institute, Russian, Chinese, we kind of know where things are happening. We're probably going to need back in the Middle East the way things are going. But, we have to look at also, how do you prevention? The prevention, because we know we want to reduce harmful behaviors. We know we just had a discussion on resiliency. So the prevention workforce and those skill sets. And, I was in one of the other sessions, in fact, the town hall we just concluded and walked over here from. I mean, the comment was made in terms of needing to focus on the resiliency, those soft skills, how to come in and get after things like financial literacy and things like that, and then, of course, behavioral health, right? And how do we reduce the harmful behaviors? And what does that workforce need to look like? And then what do we need to pair with it to get after, make sure we, leaders, right? Because in the end, leadership matters each and every day, and we have to really think our way through how do we get after that? And a lot of that gets tied back to culture.
All right. So I know we're on a time crunch here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to ask one last question. It's really your opportunity to do any final points you want to leave with the group. But essentially, and I'll start with you, General Mohan, same question for all three, and a minute or so for each response. How can we work together to ensure our civilians are the best and brightest to support the warfighter of the future?
Yeah, so it comes down to, I hate to beat a dead horse, is culture, right? And the value of service. And I think that we all have a role in promoting that culture and talking about the value of service. And from a uniform standpoint, I think it goes down to recognition of our teammates, our civilian teammates, for the contributions they make, and giving them opportunities to step outside of a normal role. Look, the G3 of AMC is the toughest job I had. We now currently have an SCS2 in that position, and I go down and commiserate with him, but he is the G3 of our organization, and we see that in other commands where we say, no, this is the commander of the organization, the director, and we value that service. And it can be very simple things. Commanders and seniors personally handing out and thanking people for their service, service awards. It can be something as simple as length of service awards, what I'm talking about. Retirement ceremonies. I thought it was very easy to execute a retirement ceremony at Rock Island for our civilian teammates who are leaving, and I tell them the same message, and we're getting ready to start doing it in Huntsville, by the way. Same message that I tell soldiers when it comes time to retirement ceremonies. Hey, it's not about you. This is about your family. This is about the organization, and this is about honoring the service of those who are willing to put their lives on the line for our country. So be quiet, show up, bring your camera, bring your families, and let us do this for you. And so it comes down to honoring the service of all that have chosen to serve our country. And that gets back to promoting the culture that you're doing something that is bigger than yourself.
Amen. And that's very important to these generations that are coming up.
Absolutely.
And want to be part of something bigger than themselves.
Purpose.
Yeah.
Purpose
is huge.
is incredibly important. That Mark Twain, the quote, two most important days, the day you're born and the day you figure out why you're born. And I think that we can help with that, to giving young men and women from all walks of life, from a very diverse background, help them find that purpose.
Yeah. Ms. Payne?
I would ditto what you just said. I think when I go out to, whether it's for new grads or for journeyman level folks, I think that culture, that purpose, why we're here, to me, there's no greater, and I think to all the different age groups of populations, is to serve your country or your family, because I always say serving your country is serving your family too. It goes local, it goes national, and the opportunity, so putting that, serving your country, family, but also just the opportunities, anything you can do in the civilian world, plus you can do in the Army, any occupation. And yet you have a comrade, you have a group, you have that identity, that whether you're in uniform or whether you're a civilian. And when we go out to recruit now, we actually go out as, are you interested in being civilian or uniform? Because when we touch people, we touch, so we can discuss both ways. And I think it just gets down to that. And then when you're looking at that as we're developing recruitment programs, you look at what is going to retain that civil engineer coming in, or that biologist or chemist, or that HR person or finance person or contracting individual. And if you can think that way, you're going to keep them.
Awesome. Thank you. General Gervais?
Okay, so my two teammates up here talked about the culture, so I'm not going to mention that. But I am going to bring it back to, because we are in a profession. And as we take a look at our profession, I mean, it captures everything that they just said and what we stand for, right? And so as you look at it, and, we want to strengthen our profession of what we do each and every day, that takes an inclusive team, a team where we empower, we treat people with dignity and respect, they feel like they're a valued team member, and that they know that it's almost like a family. They're part of the Army family. And I think when you start to do things like that, and you start to really focus on, and okay, now I'm TRADOC, right? So we believe the secret sauce, no kidding, is training and leader development, because that is investment in people. And so as we look at how we do it on this side, it has to be as strong or stronger with our civilian teammates. And then my last message, you're all recruiters. You all have a great story. There was something that brought you to serve right here. And what we need you to do is tell that great Army story. And whether it's you serve in uniform, or whether you serve in a civilian capacity, or whether you serve as a contractor supporting everything we do. But America needs to hear that. The youth need to hear that. And then we need more recruits inside of our Army, so please get them to sign up. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, can't thank you all enough. For the insights. If we could hold for 1 minute, we did want to run a very short video, real quick for the audience. So if we could, let's roll video.
I wanted to be an Army civilian to take advantage of incredible opportunities, serve my country, and see the world.
I wanted to become an Army civilian because I didn't have any prior military background, and I was really interested in learning more about the service of our soldiers and what they do for our country.
Working here is more of a team atmosphere, and you feel like you're a part of something. It's not just you against the world, it's like you and your team fighting for the same cause and same end goal.
My favorite part of working with Army CYS is the military family. I love serving the community, especially for the ones that have husbands or spouses that deploy all the time. This is your family. This is your reason.
The fact that we support the warfighter and the Army directly is amazing, and to do something like that is unbelievable.
I wanted to be an Army civilian because I wanted to make a difference. I wanted to join Army civilians that are supporting our warfighters all over the globe. I wanted to help write and influence policy that's going to make a difference for generations to come.
I am an Army civilian.
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 I'm an Army civilian.
I think we all have our story of why we served as an Army civilian. It wasn't about the money, I can tell you that. It was, but the rewards are just priceless, and it's just such a great thing to be part of something that's bigger than yourself, and to make a contribution and make a difference in our nation's national security. What I'd like to do, we were hoping to have some time for Q&A, but we got such great insights from our panel members that we kind of ran out of time. But that said, I would like to present each of you with a small token of appreciation from General Brown and AUSA. Thank you for what you do, and thank you for how you support Army civilians. One more round of applause. We'll let them get back in their seats in the audience. And what I'd like to do before we roll, and I know we're getting close on time, but I'd like to invite Dr. Todd Fohr up to the stage. He is the Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Army for Civilian Personnel. So a very important role in how we evolve the civilian workforce. And we have this thing called a civilian creed. And just a little history on that. This thing goes back a long way, but it was probably 4 or 5 years ago. I was working in the Pentagon as a Tier 3 SCS, and the Secretary pulled a group of us together and said, hey, I think something's missing in the civilian creed. And we spent a lot of time trying to figure out how could we improve it. And in the end, and Kathy Miller led that as the administrative assistant, the senior career civilian in the Army, and she led the way. And in the end, we added one single word to the civilian creed, and that was leadership. It talked about stability and continuity, but we do bring more to the table than just stability and continuity to how this Army works. We bring leadership, and we help the commanders and the political appointees achieve greatness in how they support the Army. So with that, I'll hand it over to Todd.
There's no better way to build on our culture than to recite the creed. So if you're able, please stand. Everyone in the room, there's a card at your seat. Those of you who are live streaming, please join us as well. I'm an Army civilian, a member of the Army team. I'm dedicated to our soldiers and civilians. I will always support the mission. I provide leadership,